Hi everyone, today we are going to study a new subject. From today we are starting a new subject called System Analysis and Design, which is also known as SAD. We will start with the introduction to System Analysis and Design. Now the word System Analysis and Design, the term in System Analysis and Design consists of three words: System, Analysis and Design. So to understand system analysis and design, we must study what a system is, because the first word that comes in system analysis and design is system. So basically we are talking about the analysis and design of a system. So before we understand what this analysis and design part is, we must understand what a system is, because basically we are talking about the analysis and design of the system. So before we study what this analysis and design is, we must understand what a system is. A system may be defined as an orderly grouping of interdependent components linked together according to a plan to achieve a specific goal. So what is a system? System here is an orderly grouping of interdependent components. So basically it is a grouping of interdependent components. Such components which are dependent upon each other, which are interdependent upon each other, you are doing the orderly grouping of those components. Now when I emphasize on the word orderly grouping, that means the grouping is done in a specific order. You cannot group those components in a random manner. You have to group them in a specific order. So that is why I say orderly grouping of interdependent components. When I say interdependent components, that means such components which are dependent upon each other. That means the functioning of one component depends upon the functioning of another component, and then these interdependent components are linked together with each other according to a specific plan, according to a particular plan, to do what? To achieve a specific goal. Now this entire system comes into place to achieve a specific goal. So what does this system comprise of? It consists of various components. These components are interdependent upon each other. How are these components arranged in the system? They are arranged in a specific order, hence orderly grouping. And then these components are linked to each other because they are interdependent upon each other. As I said, the functioning of one component depends upon the functioning of another component. So that means these components have to be linked together, obviously according to a plan, so that you can achieve the specific goal of the system. Each component is a part of the total system. Obviously, a system is made up of several small components. Without even a single component, the system would fail. So each component is an equally important part of the total system, and it has to do its own share of work. Although these components are interdependent to each other, they are linked with each other, but still they are doing their own share of work, and that is why they are separate components, because they are doing their separate or individual share of work for the system to achieve a desired goal. These components work together to achieve a common or a desired goal of the system. Now when we talk of information system, an information system, we have studied system in general. Now let's look at information system. When I specifically talk of information system, it is an arrangement of people, data, processes, information presentation and information technology. So that means it is adhering to the definition of what a system is, because information system is also a type of system. When I say system, that means a general term. When I say information system, that means a specific term. So system in general consists of various components, and when I talk of information system specifically, what those components would be? Those components would be people, data, processes, information presentation, and information technology. So basically an information system is what? It is an arrangement or orderly grouping of its components. And what are those components? Those are people, data, processes, information presentation, and information technology. And these all components are interacting together to support and to improve the day-to-day operations of a business, as well as support the problem solving and decision making needs of managements and users. So that means all these components of the information system which are arranged in a specific order, and the order is such that people would come first, then would come data, then that data would be processed, and then after the processing of that data we would get information which would be presented in the form of information presentation with the help of information technology. So that means all these components have to be arranged in a specific order. If the ordering is not proper, these components cannot function properly. You cannot process without data. So if the process comes first and data comes later, that would not work. So there is a specific ordering of these components, and we have to arrange these components in these specific order, this specific order only, so that these components work or function together properly. So all these components relevant to an information system, which is the people, data, processes, information presentation, and information technology, what are they doing? They are interacting with each other. Now why are they interacting? Because in an information system we need to provide support and improvement to the day-to-day operations of a business, of any organization or a business, and also support the problem solving and decision making needs of management. A management in an organization or a business needs to make decisions, needs to solve problems. So to help the management make decisions and solve problems, these components interact with each other. Also, the users are having certain problems. The users need to make some decisions. So for the problem solving and decision making needs of the users also, these components need to interact with each other. So what is the functionality that the interaction of these components is providing you, or what is that goal that the interaction of these components is providing you? It is providing the improvement and support for the daily or day-to-day operations of a business. It is also helping the managements in problem solving and decision making. It is also helping the users in problem solving and decision making. So this was information system in specific. Now let's look at the characteristics of a system. Every system in general will have these characteristics, be it information system or any other system. So when I talk of system in general, it will have these characteristics. The first characteristic of a system is organization. When I say organization, that means organizing things. And what do I mean by organizing things? That means structure and order. What would be the structure? What would be the order in which those things would be placed? So the structure basically gives you a layout, and then according to that structure you decide the ordering. So organization basically implies structure and order, the way in which the components of the system would be arranged. So as I said, the way in which the components would be arranged, that means it is an arrangement of components that would help to achieve objectives. Because if the components are not placed or arranged in a proper manner, they would not function properly. So the arrangement of components is a very important thing when we talk of system. So that is why organization is one such characteristic of a system, because it helps in arrangement of components, and when those components are properly arranged or arranged in a specific grouping, in a specific order, only then can they interact and function properly with each other to achieve the objectives or goals of the system. Another component is your interaction. It's not a component. Another characteristic of the system is interaction. Interaction refers to the procedure in which each component functions. When I say the components function together with each other, how will they function? they will function by interacting with each other. So basically interaction refers to the way or the procedure in which these functions, in which these components will function with other components of the system, because all these components are doing their own share of work, but still they are interdependent upon each other. So that means if they are interdependent upon each other, that they are functioning with each other. So it is this functioning of one component with the other component which is defined by the interaction characteristic of the system. That means basically how they are interacting with each other. Now the third characteristic of the system is interdependence. Interdependence means that one component of the system depends upon the another component. See, this is a term which is being repeated because in the very definition of system I said that the components are interdependent. So obviously if the components are interdependent upon each other, interdependence has to be a characteristic of the system. So basically what does interdependence mean? It means that one component of the system is dependent upon the another component of the system. As I said, the result of one component could be used as input by the other component. The functioning of one component would affect the functioning of another component. So this way they are interdependent upon each other. Now the fourth characteristic of a system is integration. Integration is basically concerned with how a system is tied together. Again, when I talk of interdependence, integration has to be there. If you are interdependent, you have to be integrated, or else how will you work? If the components are interdependent upon each other, they must be tied together so that they can function with each other. So that means, it means that the parts or the components of the system are working together within the system, even though each part performs a unique function. Now this I've already said that every component or every part of the system is doing its unique share of work, but still every component is interdependent upon the other components. So both these things are going hand in hand, independence and interdependence. Independence in the sense that every component is doing its own share of work, and interdependence in the sense that all the components are dependent upon each other in some or the other way. Now since they are independent, that is fine, but in spite of being independent, they are interdependent upon each other. So to achieve this interdependence, you need to have some means of tying them together, because these components are working together to achieve a common goal of the system. Hence, integration is an important characteristic of any system. The last important characteristic, but not the least, is your central objective. See, all the components work together to achieve small goals, which in turn help the system to achieve the bigger objective or the bigger goal. So when I talk of central objective, it means that the system must have a central objective towards which all the components work, so that at the end you achieve that objective. But then it is quite common that an organization may set one objective and operate to achieve another. An organization may start with one objective, but finally it starts working towards, or it gets deviated towards some other objective. It started with the intention to achieve one specific objective, and at the end it achieved some other objective. So this should not happen. The users must be aware about the central objective well in advance. You must be very specific about what the specific central objective is in advance, so that during the process you do not get deviated. At last, we will study some important terms related to system, because while studying system analysis and design, throughout the study you will come across these terms. So you must know what these terms are. The first important term is purpose. Purpose for anything is the reason, you know. So even when in relation to or in reference to system I say purpose, that means the reasons for its existence. You create a system for a specific reason. If there is no reason or purpose, this system should not exist, because that is wastage of time, money and resources. So what is the reason for the existence of the particular system? That is specified by the purpose, and it serves as a reference point for measuring its success. When I say reference point for measuring its success, means that whenever you achieve a specific goal, you refer to that reason. Is this the reason? Or have I achieved this goal? This is the reason why I was working in this towards this system. Have I been able to achieve the goal of this reason? So it acts as a reference point for measuring its success. If this reason is justified by the goal, then you are successful. But if the reason was some other and the goal is some other, then obviously you are not successful, because you have achieved something which has no meaning. You have achieved a goal which that system does not intend to achieve. So that means if the reason for this system, the very reason why this system came into existence, if that particular reason is justified with your goal, or with your end result of the system, with the objective that you have achieved, then you can say that the system is successful. So that is why this is the reference point for measuring the success of the system. Next important term is boundary. Boundary is obviously anything that is inside the system and that is outside the system. When you set the boundaries, you clearly specify what would be inside and what would be outside. For us, to simplify it, if you set the you have your house and you have the boundary of your house, whatever is inside your house, inside the boundary, and whatever is outside the boundary is very clear in advance. You cannot include the road in your boundary. Within your boundary, the road is outside the boundary of your house and the garden of your house is within the boundaries of your house. So that means you need to set boundaries while establishing a system also, that what are all those things that would be included in the system and what are all those things which would be excluded from the system. So boundary is very important when you create a system. Next is environment. Basically, environment is everything pertinent to a system that is outside of its boundaries. Anything that is affecting the system but it is outside of its boundary is the environment of the system. For example, your environment is the weather or the people in your locality, or the amount of pollution that is in your specific locality. That is your environment, because that is something which is outside your boundary but it is still affecting you. So anything that is outside the system but it is pertinent to the system would be counted as the environment of that system. Next is the input. Inputs are the physical objects and information that cross the boundary to enter from its environment. Input basically you get from the outside world, right? So when I talk of the input of a system, that means any physical objects or information. When I talk of any other system, say for example a manufacturing plant, what would be the input? All those physical objects would be, like the raw materials and everything, that would be coming from outside. And in respect to information technology, what would be the input? It would be the information that you get from the outside world. So input could be anything ranging from a physical object or information that crosses the boundary, that comes from outside the boundary of the system and enters it from its environment. It is coming from its environment. So because it is coming from a relevant source, not from an irrelevant source. And environment is everything which is pertinent to the system outside its boundary. So when I say outside its boundary, that does not mean any physical object or any information that is even irrelevant to the system but still it is entering. That would not be the input for the system. Input would only be the information that is relevant or the objects that are relevant to this system, and then they are entering from its environment. So that is why I say that any physical objects and information that cross the boundary to enter from its environment, because these physical objects and information need to be relevant to the system. That means they must come from the environment, from the system, from outside the boundary. Last term is your outputs. Just like input is something that is coming from outside, output is something that is going from inside to the environment. So outputs are the physical objects and information. Obviously, when I talk of any, again, if I consider a manufacturing plant, so the physical object would be the product developed by using the raw materials, and the information would be the information that has been developed in general. It could be an application, it could be a website. So these are the physical objects and information that go from the system, that are going from the system, that are crossing the boundary of the system and going where? Into its environment. Obviously again they have to go to a relevant place. They cannot just go anywhere. They have to go to the environment of the system. So these are all the terms related to the system.